We used to think that science and technology today are more advanced than ever. But hundreds and thousands of years ago there were inventions that science still cannot explain. Some believe that extraterrestrial civilizations or even mystical beings were involved in the creation of this technology. Is this really the case? We will try to explain in this video. Greek fire. This secret weapon of the Byzantine Empire still gives rise to many theories, even though more than 1,000 years have passed. Greek fire was a destructive weapon used by the Byzantine Empire against its enemies. Greek fire was used especially extensively in naval battles, because it was so flammable that it was impossible to put it out with water. There is evidence that combustion became even more active when interacting with water. What was really striking about Greek fire was that armies seized this hot mixture from the Byzantines, but were never able to recreate it. Nor were they able to recreate the weapon that powered the Greek fire. And this is not surprising, because to this day no one knows exactly what ingredients made up the combustible mixture. Greek fire was created in the 7th century by a Byzantine inventor named Callinicus. It is believed that he experimented with various materials until he found the perfect combustible mixture. He then sent the formula to the Byzantine emperor. When the emperor received the formula, he ordered the development of a cannon based on it, and so the siphon was developed, the same cannon that sent deadly fire in the direction of the enemy. Greek fire also produced a strong psychological effect on the enemy. It emitted a loud roar and a large amount of smoke, very similar to the breath of a dragon. Due to the fact that the weapon was effective against the enemy, the formula was kept strictly secret by the Byzantines. Later a modification of this weapon in the form of grenades was created on its basis. Although many opponents tried to reproduce the secret of Greek fire, none of them succeeded. To this day, no one knows exactly the secret formula of this combustible mixture. There are various assumptions about the technology and components, but researchers do not yet have an exact answer. Damascus steel. For many centuries there have been legends about Damascus steel. Swords made from this material were incredibly strong, sharp, and broke the swords of competitors in battle. That is why the owners of weapons made of Damascus steel remained practically invincible for a long time. Scientists, even with modern technology, could not unravel the secret of Damascus steel. The material itself was mined in India, then forged in the Middle East and then sold in Damascus. This has been going on for centuries. In addition to their incredible strength and sharpness, Damascus swords were distinguished by their unusual ripple-like surface pattern. European warriors learned about Damascus steel weapons during the Crusades in the 11th century and were impressed by their sharpness and durability. But most importantly, no one could understand the secret of Damascus steel. No one in the world could repeat such a weapon. There were many theories about this, among them the most bizarre ideas. Some suggested that the metal was first fed to the chickens and then collected from their droppings. There was also a theory that after forging, the sword was thrust into the body of a muscular slave so that its strength would be transmitted to the metal. These crazy theories appeared only because even scientists did not understand how damascened weapons were made. Gradually, firearms began to spread actively and swords became less and less relevant, and therefore the secret of damascened weapons production was lost. And the smiths managed to repeat the distinctive rippling as on Damascus swords. However, they never managed to make weapons as strong and sharp. The discovery of the secret of Damascus steel happened by accident. Only 40 years ago, scientists experimented with creating super strong and flexible metals and were able to reproduce the quality of those most legendary Damascus swords. The only way they could achieve this result was by applying the most advanced technology to control the temperature and chemical composition. It is still unclear how thousands of years ago it was possible to forge Damascus swords without modern production methods. One theory is that Damascus steel was tempered in the blood of dragons. Scientists, of course, are skeptical of this idea, but the author of the famous Game of Thrones was inspired by the history of Damascus steel when he invented those legendary Valyrian swords. Give us your likes if you've seen this famous TV series. The Lycurgus Cup. This is a Roman cup which is kept in the British Museum. It is 1,600 years old. It is known as the Cup of Lycurgus. This glass bowl is so named because it depicts a scene involving King Lycurgus of Thrace. Initially, when it is illuminated from the front, the vessel is obviously green, but when the light falls on the goblet from behind, it becomes distinctly red. This amazing property has puzzled scientists for many decades since the artifact came into their hands 70 years ago. This mystery was solved only recently. Researchers from Britain carefully studied the shards under a microscope and discovered that Roman craftsmen were pioneers in nanotechnology. More than 1,500 years ago, they figured out to impregnate glass with silver and gold particles, and they ground the particles to an incredible size. It is equal to about 1,000th of the size of a small grain of salt. This approach meant that the Romans were absolutely aware of what they were doing. Here's how this nanotechnology works. When light falls on the goblet, the electrons of the metal particles interact in such a way that the color of the object begins to change depending on the position of the observer. According to the researchers, the cup also changed color depending on the drink that was poured there. Let me remind you again that this technology is more than 1,500 years old. Just imagine the effect it had on our contemporaries. But most interestingly, this ancient technology can be used by scientists in the future to invent incredibly sensitive sensors that can help detect dangerous diseases at a very early stage or detect criminals who are smuggling illegal substances. A mysterious underground object in Malta. In the early 20th century, builders were digging a sewer and stumbled upon an amazing underground structure. At first, they did not understand at all what they encountered and began to use the place as a dumping ground. However, a little later it attracted the attention of scientists, and it turned out that this structure called Hal Saflieni is more than 6,000 years old. According to archaeologists, the ancient inhabitants of Malta built this place for collective burial. In the soft limestone were carved corridors and chambers for the bodies. The temple consisted of several tiers. According to scholars, lavish funeral processions were held here. All in all, Hal Saflieni was the burial place for several thousand people. Beads, amulets, pottery and carved figurines were found near their remains. Several halls are still decorated with black and white chessboards and other ancient drawings. However, one of the most interesting and mysterious things found inside the temple are the skulls of unusual elongated shape. And the shape is not the only anomaly of these skulls. The reason for the abnormally developed temporal septa, swellings on the back of the head and the like was shrouded in mystery. It has been suggested that these are alien remains, as this is too strange anomaly for humans. The fact that the skulls were on display in the Museum of Malta until the year 1985 added to the mystery. However, later they were removed from public access and required a special permit. And it was far from easy to obtain this permission. All this further convinced proponents of mystical theories that the skulls did not belong to the human race. Elongated skulls have been found in various parts of our planet, such as South America. There, however, scientists were convinced that they were the result of a deliberate deformation. In some cultures it was done for religious and aesthetic reasons. People's heads were bandaged and their skulls were lengthened as they grew. However, the elongated skulls from the Maltese temple are not so simple. The researchers found out that they are not the result of artificial deformation. This fact further convinced the supporters of the extraterrestrial theory. The Maltese authorities, based on the findings of local scientists, claim that these skulls undoubtedly belong to humans, but the reason for the unusual shape remains a mystery. By the way, share your opinion in the comments if you believe in the existence of alien civilizations, and we'll see how common this idea is. An ancient flying machine. Many of you have heard about the flying machines designed by the famous artist and inventor Leonardo da Vinci. However, many centuries before da Vinci came into existence, ancient India had its own designs for flying machines, and some are certain that machines were not just invented, but built. It is about the so-called Vimanas, the flying chariots that are mentioned in ancient Indian texts. The Vimanas were of different sizes and shapes, and could not only fly, but also swim and move on the ground. In addition, the Vimanas regulated speed and traveled quite impressive distances. The data on the design of the Vimanas and the basic principles of their control are also preserved. Moreover, Indian historians are certain that in ancient India similar devices were absolutely built, and they were even used as weapons. Another hypothesis is that the Vimanas were not created by humans. In the ancient Indian texts, they got there because people were observing extraterrestrial objects that happened to be on our planet. Scientists are generally quite skeptical about the idea of the existence of such machines in the ancient world and consider them only fictional mythical objects. Given that some texts claim that the Vimanas had the ability to fly, including to the moon, it is unlikely that they were anything more than fantasies. Don't forget to like the video if you found it interesting, subscribe to the channel, click on the bell to be always aware of new videos, and of course, share this video with your friends.